television. Well, there's this company named Arbitron that rates radio. And what has happened is that they have this new technology in which they're measuring, which members of the public are listening to which radio stations. And, while we don't have a problem with the technology itself, it seems that what they're doing is that they're not counting enough minorities in their samples. So let me give you an example. Let's say in New York they choose 1,000 people to represent the 8 million people living in New York. Well, we know New York has a Hispanic and African American population combined of about 50%.
Over 50.
Over 50%.
Yes.
Well, you would expect that at least 50% of the sample would be comprised of those people so that you can have an accurate measure of what's going on. Well, we're finding that that is not the case. That when they choose people to participate in their sample, Arbitron is actually not choosing enough African Americans. They're not choosing enough Hispanics. So when they use the technology, and this technology reports back that people are listening to station X or station Y, it's not really reflecting what people from those communities are actually listening to. And so, the ratings are falling. You have, like you said, Mr. Chairman, WBLS, which ran the Wendy Williams show. I mean, those had always been top-rated shows, and suddenly, overnight, they dropped from number 1 to number 14, and absolutely nothing changed except that this company comes in and starts to change how people are supposed to be listening to the radio. So you not only have WBLS, we have WPAT, we have the Univision radio stations, we have WWRL, all of them, top radio, top 10 stations, all falling 5, 6, 7% in their ratings, and now they can't raise money.
Right, because actually the advertising is based on your rating, and that as to how much you can charge is also connected with your rating. And if Arbitron is saying that your station, nobody's listening to it, then let's face it, your income is affected by it. And not only that, I mean, when you go to a bank, they all ask these questions as well. So, but how does Arbitron pick these people that are responsible for carrying around these beepers? I refer to them as beepers. They're really meters.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question, and I can tell you that that's a large part of what we're doing to investigate in the committee. But, as far as we can tell, they're using some kind of random telephone sampling, which, as you know, a lot of times when people pick up the phone and they hear a machine or they hear a voice that they don't know, they don't respond. I mean, people are not expecting that from them, and, what we're trying to advocate and what we've seen other reputable ratings agencies do is to walk up to people, go to their homes, sit and talk with them, develop some kind of relationship so that people understand the importance of what's going on. But if people don't know that, this robocall that they're getting has something to do with the life of the radio station that they love listening to, they're not going to respond. So that's part of what we're looking at, and hopefully they'll change to make a difference here.
You know what I've discovered in our neighborhoods, especially in Black and Hispanic communities? People no longer have the landlines. They all have a cell phone, and that's it. There's no other phone in the house. It's just that cell phone that everybody walks around with. So now if I have a cell phone, don't have how do they reach me? How do I get involved in the sample? I mean, these are questions I think that has to be answered before they're certified. And of course, I'm certain that you will be raising them as we move forward.
Oh, we absolutely are, and we're hoping that they'll change that too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Right. Now, tell me, what are you doing on the committee?
Well, I'm working very closely with Beverly on the Arbitron issue. I've done a lot of research on both measurement techniques and, even the sheer number of stations in the city. We often forget to mention how large the Caribbean population is in New York City, and as being of Jamaican parentage, I don't know what it'd be like if I went back to the district and didn't hear, my reggae on Sunday afternoons. What I have found most interesting is this notion that all politics is local. So whenever I see an issue that's raised by you, it reminds me of, something that I live. So it's all very personal to me. Right now, I'm looking forward to, getting involved in this getting Arbitron to comply with accreditation, but I'm also very interested in transportation issues, and I'm hoping that some of the funds from the Recovery Act will be directed towards, transit projects, perhaps in the terminal market, or, increasing access in my neighborhood for transportation services.
I thought you were getting ready to talk about high-speed stuff.
Well, that too. I actually haven't been to Albany yet, because it's kind of difficult to get up there. But if, that line is constructed, I would love to.
Yes, right.
Process.
Well, I think that's a big issue, because today you can now go from Washington to New York within 2 hours and 45 minutes on the train. Right. And they're saying they can cut off another 35 or 45 minutes, which means that an hour and a half or 2 hours after you leave Washington, you're in New York. I mean, that's what they're saying. So maybe we can use some of the stimulus money to do that, huh?
That'd be great.
Yes. Well, tell me about what you're doing with the committee.
I'm an assistant clerk on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, your committee, and basically I'm an assistant clerk, and I work in the clerk shop. And what we do, we're responsible for keeping all the legislative records for 111th Congress, so that in the future others can go back and see how much you've established, how much you've done in the committee while you were on the committee, how much you've accomplished. And I also help out with the hearings, set up. A lot goes behind. People don't realize when they watch CNN or C-SPAN all the work that goes behind it. And I actually love every minute of it, being a part of that on the committee live and watching the members of Congress. It's a privilege to be here every day.
It's a great committee, but you just have jurisdiction almost on everything. You just sort of look at it, and if there's a problem, that committee can sort of go in some kind of way and get involved in it. So that's exciting too, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Let's talk about the area that that people now are really talking about as you move around the district. You go to churches, you go to even social function, even receptions. They're talking about the job situation. Now, the stimulus package was supposed to create jobs and job opportunities. Now, I recognize only 12% of the money has gotten out, and that we have to get more out. But what can we do to increase getting the money out? I just met with the Vice President of the United States to say to him that we really need to get it into certain neighborhoods. And he also agreed, with me, and we talked about the process in terms of how he gets there. He it has overall responsibility, because the secretaries of the various agencies, in terms of sending the money to the state and to the cities and the various locales throughout the nation. But the point is that how do we expedite getting it into these communities that need it desperately? Unemployment in some of these areas, 14, 15%. That's a lot of people not working.
One thing I would say, Mr. Chairman, fundamentally, is what you just mentioned, which is something as simple but as important as having someone like you who's a voice for those people. You mentioned yesterday you met with Vice President Biden, who's overseeing all the stimulus program. So when you talk to him, as you did yesterday, and tell him that we got to get it into the different communities because people are hurting, that's a direct contact that you can have and have had. And then he has the authority to work with you and to work with those communities to get the money there so they can get back to work. And without someone like you and the Oversight Committee to make sure that there isn't waste, so you can use that money for job training, for new roads and buildings and that sort of thing, that's, I think, part of the formula that gets it done. And it also, Mr. Chairman, makes me think of another thing that is sort of related, is the executive compensation issue that you just raised also today, where ultimately what we have is these big banks on Wall Street where the executives are making millions, and even though the banks themselves are not making money, they have a very bad year, they're handing out billions of dollars in bonuses to these companies that are receiving taxpayer dollars. And that is something that you've been bringing attention, and we're planning on having a hearing on that in September. So that's another way in terms of fighting the fraud and making sure that there isn't waste, and the hard-earned money that's going down here to Washington is being used in a responsible manner to get the economy back on track.
Yeah, I don't understand this whole executive compensation. I've been told that if you do well, do a great job, and then you get a bonus. But here they are. They lost money. Some of them were minutes away from bankruptcy. Federal government comes in and bails them out, and then they get a bonus. I don't understand. It seemed to me that that's sort of working in reverse, because if you do well, you get a bonus, but if you don't, then you don't get a bonus. I mean, they're giving people bonuses who almost bankrupt the company.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, and I'm sure that they're